because I feel like I'm a little fuzzy. Oh, that's actually a little better. And so the first thing I wanted to kind of touch base on is just the history of female relationships, specifically Black female relationships, and how integral they are. You know, a lot of times when I come across brown mamas, I'm never shocked, because it's something that I yearn for deeply, is how many Black moms just really want friendship. They want genuine connection. They want the ability to really find women that they could tell their business to and not have to worry about being put on Front Street. But what they don't realize is that that need, that yearning, is actually something that is built into the DNA of Black women. Like, we don't recognize that historically Black women have built dynamic societies of women who are capable of upholding communities, families, entire social systems. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that history. So recently I've been reading a book about the Poro and Sonde societies of Sierra Leone. And one of the things it talked about in this book is just about how, like, the Sonde Society of Sierra Leone determines government in their country. And this is basically a governing group of women who train the young girls in their society in all of the cultural ways of what it means to be a Sierra Leonean woman or to be a Sonde woman. So I would really encourage you to do a little bit of research there and find out more about the Sonde people, because it was extremely enlightening to me to just figure out how these women were basically creating these social systems to train women on everything from how to stay intact spiritually, to how a Sonde woman dresses, to how to behave in the public square. I mean, everything was so intricate and just well thought out. And I think sometimes as African American women, we don't want to put as much thought into this whole idea of feminine socialization that we should begin to put into it, because it really is a very serious thing, like we talked about yesterday with building legacies. However you know, as a woman are conducting yourself around not only your daughters, but the women in your culture, the women in your society, is what they are taking on. I'll never forget that. I mean, so many women, as I was growing up as a young girl, influenced my style, influenced the way I love men, influenced the way I conducted myself, you know, just as an individual, and, you know, the way I was able to move throughout life. And that is really serious. Like, we need to take that a lot more seriously. And then I also wrote down one of my favorite authors, Same Sambufu. She talks about the importance of women talking, and about how, and a lot of times with Western women, we have lost that. Because it was interesting. So I was at Coffee and Clarity with Miss Huff, and we stayed there. It started at, what time did it start, girl? It probably started at 8. I was probably late, but it started early, and we were there till 4 o'clock talking. Just talking, like nothing else, just talking. But I think we need to realize how important that is. When we talk, we feel heard. We feel important. We feel as if, you know, we feel as if we now have folks that we can, women, not just folks, but other women who understand us. And it also alleviates a lot of the pressure off of our men, because my husband don't want to talk to me for 5 hours. It's just not going down, right? It started at 8:30, right, Tiff? We was there a long time. And it, you know, that's just not going down. And it takes a lot of the pressure and the stress off the men in your life, because you can't expect them to act the way a woman does. But more importantly, it just builds those bonds of friendship that help as we progress in our lives to erase those ideas around competition, erase those ideas around, you know, friendship destruction, or women who cannot maintain female relationships. Like, that is a farcity, and you need your sisters in order to progress, because those are your times when you're going to come up with good ideas for one another, and those are also your times when you're going to feel strengthened, and you're going to feel like you are able to continue upon the journey. So, and then also these relationships that we have with other women, there are also preparing us for our eldership. And I think as women, we need to take that, as women and men in Black society and Black culture, we need to take that way more seriously. Like, your womanhood currently is preparing you for your eldership. And, you know, when we watch movies about African societies and we see these groups of older people sitting and talking, what are they doing? They are conversing and contemplating. And so our relationships, that yin and yang relationship you may have with a sister friend, is preparing you for that eldership. It's preparing you for those deep conversations, for that contemplative mind, and giving you the ability to reflect and think deeply about the issues, about the triumphs and the glories and things that are happening in your life, and giving you an opportunity to celebrate somebody other than yourself. Because the older you get, the less life focuses on you. And the more life begins to focus on your children, your mate, your community, your nation that you're building. So we as women need to take these relationships a lot more seriously and realize how important it is that you get up on a Saturday morning at 8:30 a.m. and talk to a group of women till 4. Like, that is important. And I remember that day because I went in with a lot of mental anguish in my soul and my spirit, and I came out feeling so much lighter, just having unloaded that package and that burden. So we need to become, we just need to believe in this and believe that these female relationships are worth sustaining and that we need to grow together. And I wanted to talk a little bit also about what because we need to be aware not only of how we grow together, but what tears us apart. So that as we build female relationships, we can begin to recognize and see what's going on that is causing us to have dissension and is also causing us to move away from each other. Because I don't really believe that you ever engage in a relationship that you need to fully remove yourself. Sometimes you have to love somebody from a distance, and sometimes you have to transform the way that you love a person in order for it to be a mutually beneficial relationship. But at the end of the day, there's a reason why you encountered that person. You may not figure it out for 20 years down the line, but there's a reason why you encountered that person. And so I wanted to talk about a couple of, I wrote down some S's. So I have 3 S's on why Black females or African-American females, sometimes we have a hard time maintaining relationships with other females. And I think the first one is secrecy. And I think you can really take secrecy back to slavery times when we really were forced to, when many of us felt ashamed of the things that were happening in our environment, and we felt like there were things that we could not control. And as a result of that, we developed these habits around secrecy, around not telling anybody what's going on in your life, around keeping things hostage in your soul that later cause you to not be able to trust, cause you to be insecure. So I really think we need to re-examine, like we were talking about a few days ago. You ain't got no business. And the reality is that anything that is going wrong in your life, chances are it's going wrong with somebody else too. And, we need to begin to say to ourselves, is it really worth the secret? Is the secret really worth the mental anguish it's going to cause you, the physical illness it's going to cause you? Because let's not forget that when something affects your soul, when something affects your spirit, it is going to manifest itself on the outside. So that might manifest in form of heart problems. It might manifest in the form of tumors and cancer and, all those physical ailments that sometimes we deal with because we are harboring secrets that are meant to be shared with our sisters, that are meant to be shared in confidence. And we have to be very adamant about keeping confidences. Like if a woman tells you something in confidence, you don't go. It doesn't matter whether it benefits you. You don't go and tell somebody else. You just don't. We have to get over this thing unless you feel like they are going to physically harm themselves, like they may not wake up tomorrow if you don't call the police, then I get it. But we have to keep confidences within our sisterhood in order for us to continue to alleviate the stress of secrecy and realize that, like I always say, it is something that was put into us by our slave masters. We kept secrets from each other because we didn't want nobody to know that the master was raping us. We didn't want nobody to know how sad and distraught we felt about our environment. So oftentimes we kept these secrets, but we need to begin to release that because it's not good. The second S is scarcity. So a lot of times scarcity in our relationships, scarcity in our environments causes us to not be able to sustain long-lasting female relationships because we feel so like we have to compete. But the reality is I've always been able to get more if I worked with somebody versus working against them. Because, that saying 2 heads are better than one, that's true. That is so, 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 so true. So we need to begin to really examine, are we just perceiving scarcity or is there a real scarcity there? And most of the time, what I find is that we are perceiving scarcity and there is no scarcity there. Because even, when you're talking about business, they tell us all the time, y'all, Black people are $1 trillion community. If they had to calculate who is the richest Black community in the world, it would be the Black Americans. So there's no scarcity there. There's fear. Fear, like we said, we keep our secrets. We don't tell our stories. We don't say, I need food. We don't say, yo, I need money to run my business because I'm struggling over here. You know, so we got to get over that. We have to stop perceiving ourselves as being a scarce people. We're not a scarce people. And connect us with our brothers and sisters in Africa, and we got a one world nation because they got all the physical resources and we got all the monetary resources. So we really need to get out of that mindset that there's any scarcity in us. We are a rich people. We are rich in love. We are rich in family. We are rich in community. And, you know, we have the power to enrich ourselves as much as we want if we start focusing on it. And if we start seeing that, I don't need anybody else other than Natasha or Talia or Heather or Rachel or Elle. I don't need anybody else. Like, I can get what I need between these folks right here. And if I can't get it, I bet you she knows somebody I can get it from. So we need to stop perceiving scarcity. And of course, that goes into the category of men. A lot of times we feel like we have to compete for men. But here's the thing. We raising the sons. I always like to say that. We are the ones raising the boys. So if there is, in fact, a scarcity of men in our communities, guess who has the power to change that? We can begin to raise men who will be good husbands and good providers for our women, for our daughters, for our little cousins, for our nieces, for the girls who growing up in our community. We are the game changers for that. So let's begin to change it and stop looking at things as a scarcity and look at it as an opportunity. We have a golden opportunity as the mamas of our community, as the women of our community, to begin to change things. And that does not discount single sisters. If you're single with no kids, you can also be a game changer, because there are children being raised around you that you can assist in helping. There are children being raised around you who could use a helping hand. Sometimes our single sisters make the best mentors because they have time, or I like to say Jenga, because mentor is actually a European term that does not mean something pleasant. Look that up. But Jenga is actually a term for African mentors who actually take the hand of the children and help them to guide them along the way, you know, toward a positive outcome, come towards a positive future. And so those are just some of the things that we need to get rid of. We need to get rid of this mindset of competition, the independence mindset. We talked about that. Dependency is a natural state of well-being. It is good to depend. It is natural to depend. It is not natural to be independent. So whenever somebody tells me I'm an independent Black woman, I got this, I'm like, go on with your bad self. I'll see you in a little while. Because you're going to need me and I'm going to need you. And that's okay. Like, there's no need for, I remember at one point, you know, I just think that people argue too much about dependency, like as if it's a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with being dependent upon another human being, whether it's a man, whether it's a child, whether it's your sister. There's nothing wrong with it. It is a necessary fact of life. And let's see what else I got here. That might be it. But I've talked about this in videos before, and y'all might even be tired of hearing it. But as a sisterhood, we need to begin to upload the collective consciousness of our sisterhood. So that means, like I was saying before, getting with your sisters regularly and talking it out and figuring out what resources you have. Because at the end of the day, there are no resources that are mine or no resources that are yours. They are our resources. And we need to become resourceful as a community, full of resources. We need to become full of resources. We need to document the resources that we have, and we need to begin to share them as a collective, because it is so important for men and for women. And you know, my husband doesn't like when I try to set him up on mandates, but our men need that sometimes, because you know how our men get down. They like to be in seclusion. They don't like to ask for help. But if we start as the game changers as far as relationships go in our communities, we can assist our men in also building these bridges, because they need each other just as much as we need each other. It's interesting, in the book Boys Adrift that we read in Brown Mama's last year, it said that girls are, when young girls are born, pretty much they come out the womb wanting to be adults. Well, men don't. And I know because I got 3 sons. My sons will stay kids as long as we allow them. I'm telling you, they've all told me in no uncertain terms that they do not want to grow up if they don't have to. And that is because men learn from their peers. Whereas women, we just kind of strive to be adults. So if we see adults doing it, we're like, girl, that's why little girls get the cook set and all that stuff. But boys are completely different. They learn from their peers. So if their peers aren't doing it, if the men they're hanging around ain't doing it, they don't want to do it. They're like, that ain't cool. I'm not doing that. So, you know, as far as relationships go, we as women really have the power to change the dynamics of how we relate to each other in our communities. You know what I'm saying? And women have the ability to do that. So let's do it, y'all. Like, we got this as women. We have the ability to empower these sisterhoods, to not make it about self, to make it about community, to work together, and to do everything in our power to begin to uplift our community, because it is our community. And what does that say about us if the only way we can be uplifted is going outside of our own community? We have to begin to be those game changers, and we do that by maintaining our sisterhoods and by growing together instead of growing apart. So that's what I got. I hope that wasn't too long. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Please share this video, and don't forget to support my publishing partner, who is Mrs. Tiffany Huff, who will be holding the Cocoa Cookies and Connections event this Sunday at the Coriopolis Youth Creations. It's actually going to be a cookie competition. So my husband is on here, so you're going to have to make some cookies for Sunday, because I don't cook cookies. So he's going to have to make some cookies. So just know there'll be cookies by Mac Mendoza and Mac Mendoza Jr., because he loves to bake too. But just come out and support, make a donation. She really needs our support, and continuing to keep the Tiffany Huff experience alive for Coffee and Clarity. And I know y'all done went, so I know y'all love it too. So that's that, y'all. Hey everybody. Hey Tammy. Hey Tia. Hey Markeisha. Hey Yolanda. Hey everybody. Thank you for joining the video. Make sure you share, and have a good night. Bye-bye.